Don, how did Share the Signal get started? I know that the PSA recordings just went off the charts.
So it was about 7 years ago, and we were at Rotary meetings. Rotary International just changed a little bit of focus from polio to, once they announced, okay, worldwide, we're going to shift a little bit about trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking. And so that's where it all began. And I listened to the district attorney speak, and week after week we had speakers, and I went to hear speakers, and I just, from there, I simply had a dream one night at 1:30 in the morning that was very vivid, of a young woman needing help, being rushed into a door from two bad guys. And I was very moved by that. And just so happens that I have a friend in Hollywood. I'm in San Diego. And I had a plan. I'm going to call him at 9 in the morning and tell him, wow, I just think we need a signal or something. And instead, I couldn't wait to talk to him. So at 5:30 in the morning, I called him. I said, Doug, who I was calling was Doug Litto, Lieutenant retired from the Navy, Doug Litto. He was a pilot. He was a chief. He was a special officer in Desert Storm and others. He really knew his signals. But Doug and I were good friends, and he just right away was very interested in what I was talking about in trafficking. And he just jumped on it. So being in Hollywood, he knew people to film. He got some combat videographers. He wrote a script, hired some actors, came down to Coronado, and we started filming on the Signal. And it was a great script. It was about a 1:10 PSA. But when they edited it, these folks just did a fabulous job, and they put a lot of information on this video about trafficking and worldwide and stats. And it was like ominous music, and it was really an attention grabber. And so we just threw that on YouTube, and boom, it got hundreds of thousands of hits right away. Then we shortened it to 15 seconds for platforms, and we put it on all the platforms. But it was wildly successful. But I really still didn't know what I didn't know about trafficking. And I was in the game with this video, but now what? And really, it was out there for like 2 years, and I was still searching, like, what am I going to do to contribute to this whole trafficking thing?
7 years ago, it was very little about trafficking.
There was nothing 7 years ago. It was like my video, maybe something else, nothing in the airports that is today. So the turning point was when we put that video on a platform where people could comment. That changed everything. Because I'll never forget, the first text I got was like 2 in the morning. And it was just somebody, a woman, that said, thank you for doing this. That was the first. And it really struck me because I sensed there was something behind that thank you. And I just said, you're welcome. And then she said, can I tell you what happened to me? And then the story followed, and it was devastating. And I was absorbing all this and very affected. And then came the next comment, and then the next, and then the next. And then I was communicating, hearing the story. There was a definite rhythm to all these. First, it was thank you. Then they tell the story. And so hundreds and hundreds. And that's really what drew me in. That was the calling. The victims. Otherwise, I probably just would have made the video and just gone about my business. But I really felt like I had to answer the call and figure this out. And I went to a lot of safe houses and medical programs, and we even got to speak with Homeland Security at an event in San Diego about the video. Still really not knowing where I'm going to fit into all this, where sharethesignal.com is going to fit into all this, which came a little bit later. And then Point Loma Nazarene was a university nearby. And I realized that they had done something about grooming, right? How you get to, because every trafficked individual or abuse victim, when we do our debriefing, if you will, exit strategy, they all got tricked into it. Somebody talked them into it. If we want to call it tricked, talked into, manipulated, there was always a story. And Point Loma Nazarene really was the first that really started focusing on grooming psychology. So that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I created the foundation for Share the Signal, really. And then we just kept learning and hearing different stories. And, and they teach you, these victims teach you, right? You learn from them. And then, of course, it got into hundreds and hundreds of stories. And then finally, we had my son, who I always wanted involved in this, but he's a venture capital guy, and he's, just going, 100 miles an hour. But finally, after 3 or 4 years, he finally took a look at the website and all the information. He goes, "Look, I see where you're at now." So it was him that really elevated us. And he found a great content person that some of these companies, venture capital companies, have been using to create web content by the name of Jessica Holland. And once he brought Jessica on as a director, she changed everything because she knew exactly what she was doing. She had her own family, personal history on trafficking and incidents. And so she was very committed. And once Jessica came on board, everything changed. And it wasn't long before Sean Barrio, my son, uh, was in Denver for a meeting, and he went by it's a Marriott, and it was a lady speaking, a young lady, and she was speaking about abuse, and she was from Houston, and she was an authority on the subject, and he was just captured by and went in to listen to her. Then he introduced himself with Share the Signal, and her name was Ashley Lomas from Houston. And Ashley had been very involved in abused kids and child predators. And she had actually interviewed almost 3,000 kids, teens that had been abused. And so she just came with a wealth of knowledge. And when she found out what we were doing at Share the Signals, she said, "I'm in. You guys are on to the pulse of it." And basically, like a lot of us, is we got tired of acting after the fact. By the time somebody's been trafficked, been abused, we said, "How can we get on the front end of this thing?" And so Ashley came with all kinds of content, work with Jessica, and we started doing videos on every psychology that went into grooming, everything we could think of, all her experiences, all Jessica's ideas, all my experiences, and started putting them into 30-second videos. So every trick in psychology that's been used in trafficking, we put on film. And we just start blasting them out in different platforms in a methodical way. But now every week we come up with 2 or 3 different uh, uh, philosophies, challenges, strategies, tricks, everything about grooming. And we are on it. We are on it. And not just here. I've been all over the world. I've been to India talking about trafficking, talked to a woman there that had rescued personally 50 women in Hyderabad, India. I've been to Vietnam, Bali. I've been all over to orphanages in Mexico, so forth, Kenya, Africa. And so we are really in a very good place today. And I'm very proud of where Share the Signal has come today because we are on the front end. And one thing we learned is when teens see our video, they can never unsee it. Everything has changed. Once you see these videos, the gig is up because it's a game that's going on, right? It's a game. And once you expose the game and the tactic, they change forever. And that's where we're at.
This kind of education sounds great. Where do you see this going now in the future with collaboration with other groups?
Yeah,
or what
yeah.
would you like
Well,
people to do to join?
Well, now we always need donors. I mean, uh, the donations, because our team does not make much of a salary. I mean, everything's bare bones. They have other work. They have, we would really like to continue to build this team, but it's just about content. And we have platforms, we have training programs now for schools, churches, and we just keep improving them every week. But we're really in a very good place. And Jessica and Ashley have just created some really effective training programs. So that's where we're at. We ask for your help, your donations as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us on.